哦，上耶觉当作业就能来，将就巴多达尼耶人，大概今作业别错难解，着拉边界上耶着巴的就上耶觉当作业就能来，将就巴多达尼耶人节，大概今作业别错难。多罗宾觉三界诸巴拉ጆ三界觉当作业就能来将就巴多达尼耶尊大给亲所界别所能解多罗宾觉三界诸巴拉ጆ怎见当界的瓦当地位就当天巴拉sem chen tam che zunga dang dunga ye kyo dang da waran jo che sem chen tam che zunga me pe de wa dang me da waran jo sem chen tam che ni rin cha dang ni dang da ve dang nyom la ne waran jo che sem chen tam che de wa dang de ve kyo dang den waran sem chen tam che zunga dang dunga ye kyo dang da waran Sun Jian Dam Jie Dong A Me Be De Wa Dam Mi Ra Wan Ju Jie Sun Jian Dam Jie Ni Rin Cha Da Ni Dan Zhe Yue Dan Nyum La Ne Ban Yu Ji Sun Jian Dam Jie De Wa Dan De Wei Yu Dan Den Baran Ju Ji Sun Jian Dam Jie Dong A Dan Dong A Ye Yu Dan Da Waran Sun Jian Dam Jie Dong A Me Be De Wa Dan Mi Ra Waran Ju Ji Sun Jian Dam Jie Ni Rin Cha Da Ni Dan Zhe Nyam la ne baran yo je za je be je yo je men do dong re ro lin je nye de ye bo de San ye jin do me de bo ye do gu nan da jin la je ba jo yi dan guru rinam da la ga ni andar ya mi 这是好的。
Now in enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and by the merit of created causes, may I attain the state of
All sentient beings.
from now until my
Enlightenment, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By the merit created in these virtues, may I attain the state of Buddha with the benefit of all sentient beings. From now until my enlightenment, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By the merit created in these virtues, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of sentient beings. May all sentient beings be to happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings be never separate from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings be free from resentment and anger.
may all
Sentient beings enjoy happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings be loved by an equanimity free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness in its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering in its causes. May all sentient beings be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings be free from bias, attachment, and anger.
May all living beings enjoy the pure light.
Sanje shaja doba la cha talo tapke tuje shaje riso to shenje metro tuje poncho seje lumbo taburo jebe go shaje kyabu la cha za kange tamburo chanchu tuje ne sonam yeshe zonye zonze Tendere zeba gyachen dowa ye gonjoro kyola dage dobara lanamandu ze dube tugene lale bamne lanchen deje rela zene lamo yodo me lomzo jobaran ze la chaza tawa jonzo shagye sebo ne taje lumbu sato tambe sandang gyechen gede tenjo ge chanjo riso ngeze chaza shono dode miye singe de anga manga dane gyoza yo denpa chenam sa ne denda me baranze la chaza jiden chodan tenpara chawa dan kana mato ponjire sumo kordan denze tabla keba ye gyatse kyongwaranze la chaza korwe chawa nyingbo meze ne kimne chonde kala shene choden namda tundu nyele nye rabdo kyongwaranze la chaza tumbe chanchu drupa gone yang nyeran zane damdo lodo kawa chenze tsundru tajenbe samden chonyen zela chaza toma menen beba tunyu jir manga ndaye chanchu shendro gyudro meyo ngombara sangye ne chanchu soparan zela chaza tujen drola nyodo sinene wara nasi la zo nejo shugye kolo gone doja nang deba sunla angwanze chaza Chenje gowa ngeba tajene mode tumba adodan lejen Kormo jige yudu dinamdul tuba yule gyala chaza Siba sumna peme yundenje nyendo yubara churu shenpo na Kamin dowa kunje rabje pemba gebaran zela chaza Lelo chenam chula kuwe jir sajo chungi saje zamaro Chime doje dabi kuje ne nyangen debaran zela chaza Yanda nido njeba meje da mao simchen sonam doje tenye done rinse manto ne kudu chage kudun zela chaza Tedara dembe dabo chundenje zebe sula dozam dembo Kewen jowa kunje choba yang deje nyege zedan tsumbar sho In English.
With skillful means and compassion, you only Shakti unconditioned happiness, you vanquish man's hopes. Your physical form reflects like a mountain of gold. To you, the king of Shaktis, I pay homage. You are shown so facility kingdom of light of enlightenment, and completed the humiliations of the and are easy to the vast way of your actions. Him, the Lord and protector of living beings. Homage to you who have taught us. You did the time had come to tame the human world, and descending from God like me. Who saw the family of your great and created the Lord, my Devi. Homage to you, reigns of the Shaktis, born after 10 months in the auspicious Lumbini Grove, where Brahma and Indra revered you, your supreme marks, proving you were destined to be enlightened. Homage to you, remain among men, in all your youthful vigor, displaying your prowess in the games that are Anga Magadha, where you drank over the contestants so that none could resist. Homage to you who, to comply with the worldly convention and avoid all misdeeds, took from a queen and courtiers, and by acting with such skillful means, so you rule the kingdom. Homage to you who saw the samsara is wholly futile, renounce a life of a householder, and traveling through the sky, wooden yourself before the vision plus two gods. Homage to you who intend on preserving enlightenment. For 6 years, practice austerities on the banks of the Niraja, and taking diligence to its perfection, attain the supreme samadhi. Homage to you who seeking to be meaningful, all your efforts throughout beginningless time, set unmoving in the Vajra posture beneath the Bodhi tree in Magadha, and awaken into true Buddhahood, attaining perfect enlightenment. Homage to you who in your compassion gaze at once upon living beings, and then turn the wheel of Dharma in sacred places like Varanasi, and establish disciples in the three vehicles. Homage to you who destroyed evil-minded opponents by defeating the 6 teachers of the Tripikas, Devadatta and the rest, as well as the Maras in Varanasi. You were the mighty sage, victorious in battles. Homage to you who
who performed
performed
the
great
great
miracles
miracles
in Sarvasti, unmatched in their splendor in all the three realms, and through the orb made by gods, humans, and other beings, cause the teachings to prosper and increase. Homage to you who to spread the lazy onto the Dharma, left your body, though immortal and like a Vasha, and passed into Parinirvana in the pure abode of Kushinala. Homage to you who to show that you had not perished, so that the beings of the future could gain merit, emanated the wealth of relics, and caused your remains to be divided into 8 portions. Through the merit of bravely praising in this way the great acts of the Lord, who is master of teachings, may the affections of all living beings come to equal those of the Supra instances.
Then the Tulishiva, the Matulishiva in the Ne, Tamala Nipundele, good afternoon to all you. That it was to different treasures of Nima initial explanation, but the Kasangaman Tinamant and that in Luri Tunki Yesus in an Yawatanda. The Tulishiva, the Matulishiva Kabarse, didn't subject Taran teacher to the Chidani, Tatin Mataran, Dinala Saudi, Dina Sumbanashin, Chinetinma, the Chigi Chinetosha. It is so to that Chidane that Tambo granting on Sutara, Tulwadama Tulwaze, the Kebade, Chidane Aranto, Tambo Gran Koi, Chagueto, which is Chagor Chidane, Senye, the Mata Oni, Sola low candidate. Tulmatula, the Candisila, Mozimazin, the Kengo, the Kitchen, Chagado, Chidane to Tools at the Zambala Chick, the Chick Maimba, the Chick, the Pena. 다시 심전도 오지라 삼다 and 심이도 오지 마임바지라 심이 임베 나와 차와데라 풀와다 네 지그 대야다 다지 나유 지다 풀와다 되네 나유라 풀와자 되네도 되네지네 다 개발시네 된 마용도 된다 저도 풀와자 돼서 말 어디 다지 심전도 오지 심이도 오지 제와이나 심이 마임바지라 심이 지그 레삼데 지 도병원에 툴네 차례줘라 어디다 풀와다 대 마임바들 뭐 풀와 된데지가다 차도라 당보 프로프로 시외나 서우디나라 용도
So we will continue with our text, mistaken versus unmistaken cognition, on page 78, and we will follow as it is presented in the text, and it's not that hard to understand. But before actually going into the text, it would be good to have some kind of a sense understanding of what mistaken versus unmistaken cognition generally means. So the mistaken in simple sense, when, for example, perceiving an animal cat and then kind of with that perception, having a conceptual thought that it is not a cat, so that would be a simple example of mistaken. And then in the text, we will see more kind of particular aspect, such as, in terms of the object, in regards to appearing object, in regards to engaged object. So we'll follow with the text.
투체자 데나라 나유 잠라 투하다 나유 다니 순유 나유 다니 주율 니가 투하 니 릭다잖아 나유 다 주율 니가라 투마투다 릭 니가 용괴서라 데인데 좀탄다 디가나 페나 데나 봄 다란 데나 수마나 페제데디 손 랍스난데서 봄반쯤에 또 바다고 나유 잠라 투하다 봄바 따발집에 또 바다고 더부 나율 맞에 주율라에 tul아인 세송다 대한다 되네진 봄바 짐베 도발라랑게 나율 봄바 마이 봄바임베 나와랑게 나율라 투제 자와 투제 제자제 봄바 따발 짐베 도발라 봄바 따바임바 나와 맞에 봄바 따바임바 나와다 짐베 되네 랑게 나율 맞에 주율라에 tul아서 다디 sempa di nala ani chik nayu la truwa da nayu mazi juyu la truwa de pe goni sungu da pe na ta pumpa de ani nayu pumpa nzimbe topa di nayu koran la truwa de pe rawa de pe je tarang kapu kendo kore pumpa tabar nzimbe topa de nayu mazi ani juyu la truwa sungu da di khande zine pumpa ani chidane pumpa ani midabaro pumpa midaba inti zamba pumpa tabar zimbe lode ani truji korande nayul la truwa mazi ani shenyul kani yul koran juksati kare zina pumpa korande diro midaba inti zamba midaba mayimba tabar la truwa zamba dilay juyul la tru sore odi di ta zozo di sungu da dinala dini di
So in the first part of the section, mistaken versus unmistaken cognition, there are two ways in which cognition may be mistaken, two ways of mistaken. It may be mistaken only with regards to appearing object, or it may be mistaken with regard to its engaged object as well as its appearing object. So mistaken cognition can be to appearing object as well as not only appearing object but also additional to that engaged object. And then we have an example for each of these. For example, a conceptual cognition apprehending a part is mistaken only with regard to its appearing object, and a conceptual cognition apprehending a part to be permanent, it is mistaken with regards to engaged object as well as to its appearing object. In the case of conceptual cognition apprehending a part, its appearing object appears to be a part, but it is not a part. So in this mind, this mind is mistaken with regard to its appearing object. In a conceptual cognition apprehending a part to be permanent, not only does a part appear as a permanent, but part is apprehended to be permanent too, just as it appears. So we can see kind of differences between these two mistaken. The first appearing object mistaken there's only kind of mistaken with regards to appearing object, but additional to that, when looking at the same part as an object, although part is impermanent, but kind of apprehending it as a permanent would be mistaken to the engaged object.
Yeah.
So the initial example of seeing an animal that is fat but not apprehending it, and it is both.
Shimi tabul pechashina shimi mahimba di
So tanda
tushe da khasa di nangi le tuwa masu jugu le tuwa ro le to.
말에 디 어디 책 말이다. 빼나 단다 디간 라인이 나 시미 코란데 가래래 디로 다 미다 바로. 단다 디니 주율 코란데 니 디차로. 다 지단이 까지 주율 데니 머툴 와진바이나 가래 거르잖아. 단다 딱바 미다 바고라. 단다 디 딱바 랍샤기도. 딱발라기도 다 시미데 가르즈네 지단이 같이 모툴로지 디체바이나 시미 코랑 다 시미 임바다 미다바 임바다인데 얘나 거기 초진에 한 더도 차르고도 야로 딘디도 오지 차고다 어디 데레샤다 삼로 당주니도 용도 다 지단이 단다디에 툴 마툴 세야 되다 다지 된 단다디 조조도 가리도 차고잖아 다디 ngoma ta di gani ta ngoma yimba da mayimba ta odila rale gorda tiya ta ta din ma mangbo chi toba ngone jashagido toba ngone nayu le chuze tobin nayu la khan charwa di phage yimba ina ta di toba da tome la dele yonshagido di ta toba da tome la dinde cheba ina nayu dinde cheba ina ta di phage di chagmido pomba 심이데 풀마를 디타다 다른 딜 나게 단다 주바나지 차르고도 아
So they were saying this it has kind of both it can have a both perspective, and at the basic level, when we're talking about mistaken and unmistaken, you can understand that as whether it is kind of factual or not. But then here it is talking in terms of conceptual and non-conceptual, and
근데 심이데 뺀는데 레나게 심이데라서 심이데 나율다 심이니까를 투두고 도세라 어디 디데 툴민도 툴마레잖아요.
So
Pena tool tanda di dan ding display dagimida.
The example is a little different. What you said, using the animal.
Tanda di animal tiade shimidi diro midabara. Tanda di pumba tabar zimbe lo set zambala.
So the animal cat is by nature impermanent. Here in the example, we also see apprehending part as a permanent.
같이 ছে네도 같이 뭐마 ছে네도 신율라 마툴와 있나 가르고래 미닥 바거라. 미닥 번진 진거다.
So if Shenyulan Jugulagu. So if the object is unmistaken to its engaged object, then object has to be impermanent.
네 디와데 다나 봄바 따바 짐베로 짐베 또발라 봄바 따바 따바 임바 나와 마세 봄바 따바 임바 나와 진세 어디 디 갈라고는 거기 신율들로 출레 디지기도
So Jugulagu.
주길
So mistaken to the engaged object in the example, it says, in a conceptual cognition, apprehending a pot to be permanent, not only does a pot appear as a permanent, but there is an apprehension that pot is a permanent too, as it appears. So that becomes mistaken to the engaged object.
다다나지 디네 왈 아닌데디 투치지 모도 전이도 다른데 랑게 나율 출레리 바세데 숭도 다나지 디네마 투치 랑게 진단게 율라 툴마 진단게 율라 툴마 투치 그냥 랑게 나율라 툴라시 거에서 손 다치다니 단다 투치 코난데라 투치기 전이데 디체 투치데라야 진단게 율라 툴와다 마툴라 지리 요사래 이디서 마티는 다나지 단다 디나 소도 투치 임발라 갈래 랑게 나율데라 툴라지고 툴제도 삼발라 나율라 툴제도 삼바다 단다 마임바지 임바진 디알들라 아니 로툴 차도로 어디
In the next paragraph, a definition of mistaken cognition. Definition of mistaken cognition is a mind that is mistaken with regard to its appearing object. So something that is considered as a mistaken cognition, it must be mistaken with regards to its appearing object, or the object, the appearing object. And it can be mistaken and unmistaken with regards to engaged object. It could be both, but it must be mistaken to the appearing object.
다나지 텔라 예와이나 데다 띵네닝아 띵네는 돌린 지어라 또바 투체다 도메 투체 니체 단 담보 범반진베 또바다보 이니 범반진베 또바다보데 가르잖아 이니 또바 투체다 이니 가링 온번나 완실다보 또바다 든지 또바다 든지 든도나 찬 나율라 투라다 로신 랑게 줄때 임베티 줄 인신도 된지미 찬율라 투바오서 도메로시 도바투제다 도메투제니 본전 도바다보디 다란데나 숨보나지디 아니 도바투제다 가링온보나 와시다 도메투제.
And the classification of types, there are two types of cognition that are mistaken. We talked this earlier as well, mistaken conceptual cognition, and then mistaken non-conceptual, so conceptual and non-conceptual cognition. And the example of these two, for the first one, the example would be, conceptual cognition, mistaken cognition would be apprehending a pot. And in the second case, mistaken non-conceptual cognition, a sense consciousness to which a white snow mountain appears blue would be mistaken non-conceptual cognition. And it says the latter is categorized as distorted cognition.
tanzadi wadala tobanam tunji nawe chane nayula tulwa tangsa loshenam rangi juyul tem mayin jinto tel zimbe chane ta tunda tuche la zimba loshe dawoji tena je tan rangi juyul te la ne te mayin ba te jinto zimbe chane ta chane ta yul de la wadala tuche jari doa odire ta.
And then at the end it says conceptual cognitions are mistaken regarding the appearing object in that an object universal, or meaning generality, appears to be the object. Distorted cognitions are mistaken regarding their engaged object in that they hold their engaged object to exist in a way it does not. So So mistaken cognition usually is very much similar to the distorted cognition, and basically what it does is that, as said here, engage object pull the engaged object to exist in a way it does not, although it doesn't, but although it does exist, but it appears that it doesn't.
Oh, the tulchenam talje tulju da talje tulju da puji tulju kangrong ki tobji yulla tulchins talje da danda de ni dina sumbana talje tulju da ani puji tulju kangrong ki tobji yulde la ni jugre da negab da tardu ki ni da jugul ni doji dina sumdo dini danda negab ji danda jugul de la tulju de la ani ta rimba mandawa shido sungdo dinimadi jirerigi tuju de taji tuju la yu tuju tenla yoba dan tuju ene yula yoba tuju nela yoba tuju tema takin la yoba shi chi dinishi sungdo ta dinima digi pechenda cheba dinima wala yongodo
And then mistaken cognition may be mistaken regarding its object due to the influence of. So influence is two temporary cause of error or and a deeper cause of error. So for the temporary causes of error, there are four on page 79. One that exists in the basis, and second one that exists in the object, and then third one that exists in the location, and then fourth one that exists in the immediately preceding condition. Now the example of each given for the first one, an example of non-conceptual cognition with the temporary cause of error in the basis is the visual cognition of two moons that occurs when the eyes is affected by an eye disorder. The main condition causing this mind to be mistaken comes about through the functioning of the basis, that is the visual sense organ. So the cause of error is said to be exist in the basis. The example of the second is the disc appear when a fan spins around very quickly. So this appear when the fan spins around very quickly. I don't know why, but in Tibetan it's the same, but in English slightly different. Different translation. This is actually the same as in the second. If you look at the next paragraph, last paragraph, a circle of light appearing. Circle of light circle appearance when firebrand is spun around very fast. That is the Tibetan word, same as the earlier one. So that is the example of the second, a circle of light appearing when a firebrand is spun around very fast. Example of the third, that exists in the location, sensory cognition in which trees appear to be moving, as can occur when someone travels in a boat. And then fourth example, immediately preceding condition, sensory cognition in which the ground appears to be red due to the mind being disturbed by an anger. Basically,
Tina ta tanda diga so ne yu ten dang yul dang ne dang ene tema ta ken se zamba dig yu ten la du zamba khande je long ji ma jen tanda de pe ji gani pe jer ko len tu yu gre pe na tanda diga mi rabri ke le ba se de zamba la yul mi khorang ki ken che ba te la te ne pa cho yul de tul yul de dawa chik de ne dawa ni la tul wa di sung go ro ta na jing gi ten yu ten de ten tanda di ten de roa ten de yul se de zamba ta yul tanda galme se de zamba ta nga pe tan me koran di gala kuji koran ki ken de la yoba di de la ten ni nga zu di ko de zamba yul de galme koran de chi ne se de zamba ta nga zu tanda di gala ni tula shuba mota pe lang sai de injinala
true dana de change people da.
어디 따라 어디 주는 아주 모던한 남주 쉬운데 좀 받이랑 아주 하고 긴기로 왔다. 지금 모던한 주에도 좀 받아 지당 롱바데 저야마 네 모던한 네 요때 아주 초라디 칼란 즉 두기 파조데 툴네니 두기요가 차라디 데레 ene tema ta kinzi tema ta kinzi tamba tanga to sem chupa da sem made wala dende la ken la tene yang to chik tanda de yang la saji maru na wa da te chik yang de la te chupa de la ken la chene yang na so ring manda wa dende chik thoya da do manda wa thoya tanda de gang la ni mar ko thoya o dende ji sungor da
Um, Hopefully you can understand this through the the example. The first one that exists in the basis. In the example, it says in the basis here is the eye. Eye sense organ itself, eye organ itself. So the basis, when eye is affected, then through that disorder you can see kind of two moon, although there's only one moon. So that error is because of the sort of disorder on the basis itself. The second exists in the object. This example is the as we said earlier, light circle appearance when you kind of spin very fast in a firebrand. So that error exists on the fire itself, the object. The object, although it is just a kind of firebrand, but when you circle, make it kind of quickly, circle, it appears to be light circle, although it is not. So it happened, or it is on the object. That's why exists in the object the cause of error. And then third, the temporary cause of error exists in the location. In the example for the third, sensory cognition in which trees appears to be moving, as in occur when someone travels in a boat or in a vehicle. So although physically you are in the boat, in the vehicle, but the feeling that you have is when you look out, all the trees seems to be moving, although they are not. And finally, the fourth fourth immediately preceding condition. For the immediately preceding condition, it happens because of the immediately preceding condition referring to the consciousness. So there is some impacts or effects in the consciousness, and because of that, in the example here, because of anger, in which because of the anger you have the appearance of red color. So that's because of the error in the immediately preceding condition or the consciousness.
Others study what the line temaridi is each tank to attend rabrip tang yuka nyurto korwata yo turshoba tulala sobi tulamaki beshaban insumo tanda di tilita di any tulares timaimba la any tachik matulwas and antido tingalangato ngosum temase ngosum lady that the timaimba til lobala and ngosum shunantido.
So then we have a quote from immediately after that drop of reasoning. Direct perception is a cognition in which no error has been induced by an eye disorder, fast spinning, boat travel, mental disturbances, and so on. And other than that would be, mistaken. Do you remember to get true?
Matula.
So these are the mistaken, and the other.
Matula shuna digiri ngosum mosi da tanda tingala ngosum da ni ngosum temasi eja ngosum reisi da matula.
And the reverse of this are unmistaken, or here it says a direct perception.
Dadini wala yang tulo tela yang wangbo sujen bala nebe 겐다 이게 왕보라 너비 겐니세 데데 심바니 소용도 다 데나네 단다 옹보 수진 너비 겐 옹보 수진 발라 너비 겐들라 칠라 유비 겐다 나라 유비 겐니세 데는 마스 디 소용도 데네 가지 데네 요바나 진지는 가지 쇼
And then we also see two types of condition that cause such error. One that is physical sense faculty, distortion by physical sense faculty, and the other distortion based on the mental sense faculty. Again, the physical sense faculty has two types, and so we will go according to how it is presented here.
melon tang tabula sobe nane dasho badang ke nime özer chima kyo yuldan nyaor kyo wala soba te se te dagi ombo nebe ken nang na me chi rimba shin tu sunyen la chi ji itang tacha tang ti mi kyo la soba zimbe gyur gyur ozer nipa ombo su chen bala nebe ombo su chen bala nebe ken nang na yobani rabrib da mixer da rimne la soba te te dagi ombo le nebe ken china me kan te dagi wanshi tulur chebe so se te sambala ta tanda di nana chila yobe ken da nana yobe ken se de dina duwa da pena melon da tacha la soba da dina sumba na jengini da chila yobe ken da nana yobe ken di ini tanda rabrib da mi servo da mi rimne la soba di suyo do di dina yoba na jengini shushana ri
So two types of condition of errors. The first, physical sense faculty. Second, mental sense faculty. So the first has two types: external conditions that distort the physical sense faculties, and internal conditions that distort them. And then we see example. The first type includes things like mirrors, voices inside the cave, summer sunlight on a pale sandy area nearby, and so on. These respectively cause the apprehension of a reflection as a face, echoes as a speech, a mirage as water, and so on. Second, internal conditions that distort the physical sense faculties include such things as an eye disorder, jaundice, infectious disease, and so on. These cause sensory cognitions to be mistaken.
다 디디 타나 디는 왈 페시 딜리다 피스 살로 도튼 수 디는 만도 디냐 입당 다디 단다 디치 단다 입당 카도다 transel라 소바 다 입라 툴라 카도라 투와 transel라 투와 뽕 툴라 딘데시 양제 용기 되셔 베나단다 갈미뉴도 코알라 소바 콜로콜 원실라 더불라 입라 투와다 동서보 나와 원실 더보 카도라 투와 투슈바 토기 전신 콜 도나와 더부 자왈라 투와다 다지다니 소네 원실 더부 탕라 투와다 다시 사나기 원실 더부 ngol라 투라 남체라 니마차 샤로나 밀람지 시발 더부 샤부 딜라 투와다 장림보네 뜨베세 공부 친구 양 율도 공부 친구는 충원 나의 미실 더부 제말라 투와 인세데 좀 산다 디가도 도도데 도데 가는 입당 가도 당체 솔라 툴와데 베게고니 시에모도 되는데 베데나진.
And then on the last paragraph on page 79, there may also be errors regarding shape, color, number, measurement, and so on. And an example of each are, for example, a circle of light appearing when a firebrand is spun around very fast is an error regarding shape. A white conch shell appearing yellow is an error regarding color. Trees appearing to be moving as an effect of traveling in the boat is an error regarding activity. One moon appearing as a 2 is an error regarding number. Falling hairs appearing when there are none is an error regarding nature. Sunshine at midnight appearing in a dream is an error regarding time. A large object appearing small when seen from a distance is an error regarding measurement. Among those, a dream consciousness is a mental consciousness, and the rest are sensory cognitions.
다나지 디나라 디 단다 디 파바토메기 나주체베 살레 투 남방에 툴라오세 남방에 툴라데라 칸 두시 툴라 당 두시 툴라다 당 툴라 입 툴라 카토 툴라 레 퉁바오세 숨바 to she true ni le chin thong ni de chu chin no nya bo ta bo da le tru ni chawla tu ni namdang you know se tanda di bor di kono de se de jushana de
Page 80, also Asanga's levels of yogic dates speaks of other causes of error. Quote, one errs in 5 ways. What are those 5 ways? One, erring with regard to discernment. Second, erring with regard to number. Third, erring with regard to shape. Fourth, erring with regard to color. And fifth, erring with regard to action. In this context, erroneous discernment is, for example, when one sees Devadatta and things, it is Yajnadatta. Erring with regard to action, quote and unquote, is synonym for erring with regard to function.
Oh, dice, tadine ma nipa, tandadi, tadine wa nipa zeti sambala, tandadi, kande laine, wangshi, sujen, ombo sujen bala nebe kendang, yigi wangbo la nebe kenze, ta yigi wangbo la nebe kende la ya, milam tang, changtong wada, membala soba, teta ki, ishe tular che do, ta yigi wangbo de la kende kare milam tang, changtong wada, changtong wada, membala soba, teta ki, 이제 툴러 제도 숨도 되네 된다 디 공제 피치 페이다 되다 내요 그렇게 된다 디기 다네 이기 셔봐 된다 이기 셔봐들 너바디 가르치 밀람 툴러다 창동화의 창스 창통화의 견체바 될라 되니 즉 양조 이기 셔봐 투루야 딜 디기 너고라 맨세드 잠발다 맨 냠바리 릭텐디기에네 다 직제바 될라 되니 양 셈투버 제야단 된데요라 된디기에니 이제 툴러 지그레 숨도
And at the end of page 80, as for second type, that which causes or error for the mental, sense faculty. As for the second type, conditions that distort the mental sense faculty include dreams, intoxication, and medication. Because this causes the mental consciousness to be mistaken. So, bad drugs or medication can cause consciousness to be mistaken, so on and forth.
어디 딩을 단다 디강라 멜로강라 에네 단다디 원보 수진비나 치견들라 에네 멜롱자서 멜롱다 타부디지 잡아 인제 조도 어디 가르든 멜롱 기능랑아 저 통화된 거 말이지 말이야 저 하고라 어디 빼마도 어디 사면도 어디 멜롱데다 타자데다 칸타게 된다디 빼데 디스 라고 인제디 가르잖아 다직 멜롱는 게 제진 돈인데 엄마마로 출바로 다나징은 저 타자데도 타 먼저 파게 타 춤보든지 여살랑 저 파다도 뭐 춘다다와데 파답네 영화마도 어디 출와디 빼도 치기 출 너바기 출로기에는 게 빼라 디샤바리
So earlier in the external condition that distort the physical sense faculty, we see, mirrors, voices inside the cave, because the reflection that we see in the mirror is obviously not the real, it's just a reflection. And likewise, voices inside a cave, echoes are not actual voice, but rather kind of reflection. So that's why these are, errors.
단디 와달라 단다 디레 세메존도 세메디 단다 나디 간달라 디도와 툴리시바 마툴리시바 모도차 세메존도 투제 남랑원 숨단나게 타년제 같은기 개버치어진 투제다 원숨단나니 던제 투제다 원숨단나니 던제 랑기 나율라 툴리 랑기 나율라 툴리 ripo ngosum tanang ki ngoyen te atsima dule ese to saba tanda di jushana di to tine tsime shonto tulche na ngosum tanang ki tanyan zeba yobe tinyi la kebar chiyoshin tulche da ngosum tanang ni tunji yin rangi na yula tule ripo ngosum tanang ki ngoyen
Last paragraph on page 80. In the Buddhist epistemological text, mistaken cognition is referred to also by the term fallacious perception. What might be the difference between these two terms? Mistaken cognition and the fallacious perception are in fact synonymous. The definition of a fallacious perception is a cognition that is mistaken with regards to its appearing object.
단다 디가 아니다. 제마 군들로 출다 군조 셰바다 제바제서 볼 전당 군들 제 정호 손다나가 리첸스 디가 소양 야와 리그멘도 디나 든지 당기데 어디 든지 제 지송세 주셔난데 그거
Then from the quote, Dekyong's compendium of valid cognitions, we see further 7 types of, 7 categories of types. And the quote, page 81, mistaken cognition, conventional consciousness, inference, that which arises from inference, recollection, and desire, along with perception distorted by an eye disorder, are fallacious perceptions. So here, fallacious perception is presented in terms of the 7 categories in the following order. First, mistaken conceptual cognition, such as conceptual cognition apprehending a mirage to be a water. Second, a conventional conceptual cognition, such as a conceptual cognition apprehending a gross composite object or a continuum. Third, conceptual cognition of an inference, such as the conceptual cognition apprehending a reason. Fourth, conceptual cognition that arises from an inference, such as an inferential understanding based on reasoning. Fifth, conceptual cognition that is recollection, such as conceptual cognition remembering as past thing. And sixth, conceptual cognition that aspires to something, such as in conceptual cognition wishing to actualize something in the future. And 7, non-conceptual fallacious perceptions, such as a sense consciousness to which falling hairs appear when eye is afflicted by a disorder, and so on.
단다디 지단다 인지나 찌데 도디지나라 연구연나면나 같이 단다디 싸워 제마군들이 찌디나라 단다디 된 창와디 디나라 찌제 시데나라 디용그리야다.
So in the quote in Dekyong's compendium, all of these 7s are sort of, presented in a very brief manner in one verse.
Tene matu tadine ma wadela matul shibe ngode matul shibajo matul shibe ngode rangi na yula matul riba tanga to tulo do sa ta matul wade dode ba dan dode chiba omo lola ngosum na matul wade 디 숨바나 중에 당아도 단다 디강데라 자 치디네 제마군 리티기 치드나 다라 단다 디네 시베 마 툴라라 소베 소바마지베 샤바는 무슨 레 숨바나 중에 단다 디강라 좀도 무슨 마툴런 데스 몬보토베 미실타고 마툴베 시베 첸지노스 toba nam yul te tunji tundu chuli riba yinbi zindangi yul chul maru chidar yang chuchi yin kola tome shabane rangin zindangi yul matul na yul la matul la yin gobe matul shaba yin tome yin ko soos ta kantar tanda di kapso di matul shaba yene tsanyi dang matul shaba yi ta matul shaba lai de sungido.
And on page 81, unmistaken cognition. So about the unmistaken cognition, first the definition of an unmistaken cognition is a cognition that is not mistaken with regard to its appearing object. According to the Sotantrika Sutra school and Sotantrika Madhyamika system, direct perception is unmistaken, as we saw earlier in the quote.
Missing.
Invalid cognition, there's one missing.
Yeah.
Assumption. Based on habitual tendency.
Just a minute. So there was a quote earlier, I couldn't find it. The direct perception is unmistaken. So for them, a visual cognition of blue is an unmistaken cognition. Conceptual cognitions mistake their objects universal for the object itself. Thus, they are necessarily mistaken cognitions, no matter whether they are mistaken or unmistaken regarding their object as cognized. If a non-conceptual consciousness is unmistaken regarding its object as cognized, then it must be unmistaken regarding its appearing object. Therefore, if a cognition is unmistaken, it must be a non-conceptual consciousness. Also, since directly perceiving subsequent cognitions and indeterminate perceptions are also mistaken, unmistaken cognitions need not necessarily be a valid cognitions.
Dinala.
So you're saying
Dinala, Diwadala.
so you're saying correct assumption is not included here?
Yes.
Yeah, based on habitual tendency.
지단계 아주 곰시 나오래. 곰시 지나 아주 이주디 갈어디 가서디.
Which can lead to valid cognition or invalid cognition.
지단 아주 시계토네 지나 이주시로. 이주도 고 추버로 다 있는 추버에 내게 고고다 이주디게 로 추버다 마주 아니가 인식돼. 네 추버 인초로 진짜 간다 같은 거라 디날 이주도 될 추고.
어디 them are 어디 인사다. 다시랑 어디 디치네 다 미세기 디미도 디치실 토틀랭 없어 디쳐오디 이쪽이 portal.
So we'll talk this in the discussion about the correct assumption.
I'm always a step ahead.
디와디 직다는 요와디 디치슈샤나.
And then final paragraph of this section, according to the Chittamatra mindfulness school, Yogacara Madhyamaka, and the Prasangika Madhyamika, consequence Madhyamika system, visual cognitions apprehending a blue and so on are mistaken cognitions because they are distorted by a deeper cause of error. As for Prasangika Madhyamikas, they consider all conceptual and non-conceptual cognitions within the mind streams of ordinary beings to be mistaken cognitions. Yet they also maintain that all instances of cognition directly apprehend their own appearances. Subtle distinctions such as these that are drawn by the Prasangika will be explained in volume 3 and 4.
어디 기타 드린 기타다 디 롭센도다 툴로다 마툴레 셰바게 딘리시레샤 다디 다디나라이 다 저는 셰바이나 디나라 도아 디타네 디 타란티 디렌티 타란티 네 어제 전에 퍼센트.
So this is about valid and mistaken, and so we'll take a break here.
And
after the break, we'll have a discussions. Any questions?
About like the illusion of the falling hair.
Uh-huh.
About floaties.
Floaties?
When it talks about
Yeah.
the illusion of seeing hair falling, is that talking about floaties like that thing in eyebrows?
Distortion, sometimes in vision, that where it's like the cloudy spots are little spots.
다시 잡아놔야 돼. 문제라도 가려고 해서 다시 잡아놨어. 서도마서 돈.
이 라마스니까 다 다른데 네 시티즈마 마사야 다른 데로 이거다. 이 가리기 벨사이로 춘단다디.
So we were saying it's what as soon as that kind of that the word says kind of falling off pieces of hair, and so distortion, but it's not actually there. So there's an appearance of that. I mean, there might be a better word for what you said, Lord.
Yeah.
Frequently, when they say like an illusion.
Lotus.
there's a distortion of the eye, so, you know, it's not caused by object.
Yeah, well, as we're doing the text, it's a problem with the eye. It's an issue with the eye.
That might be.
다 단다 어디
Because that does
단다 다른 어디
make little
술체 내가
There's a lot of
천안도 오질라 상관없는데.
I remember always trying to focus in on it and it keeps moving.
So it's you're saying, you know, because of the distortion of the eye, it's then this falling has merely kind of its appearance, but it's actually not there.
So I have tinnitus, you know, so I always have a ringing. Yeah, I just ignore it. I know what it is,
Oh, okay.
how we label it, but it's a distortion in my sense, you know, and wherever that is, whether it's the brain or the ear, who knows? So it's, you know, a lot of people's vision is not book perfect, you know, probably nobody's is really.
One of the times I'm quiet to do so the kid when you're my daddy color the ten lower. Wang she die, I'm not the Shebeniga Takareni Kyung Sigro.
So that's a mistake. And if I say, oh, there's a sound.
samsung 저 서로 영어들이 영어라.
Telephone ring.
네, 근데 아주 도방원에 근데 삼성라 용어도 안 나로데 정말 치료는 미식 꽤 나와도 근데 용어를 나로네 당아도 근데 용어
So yeah, sometimes you were saying sometimes it can happen. Our conceptual thoughts create something which is actually not there, but then we think that, you know, it's real. Could be anything, sound or, you know.
And 나로 데데 장아라로 나로 신바이나 삼성라 깨도 그래서 미션 바지 깨당서 봤다고도 어디로 다깨 될라 때는 갈 깨고 될라 때는 양아주 칠로네 깨당도 선데 신바 출연도 zambal아 양 파타 용도 zambal아 디차도라야 내가 매와 등에도 zambal아 다 등에 용고 당보디 거기는 신바지 럭다니 디 zam바 출 수송
So you're saying happens to him as well. Sometimes when he was just sitting by himself, he can hear somebody's calling you, but
Mistaken.
Yeah, you can say influence under that. So when he thinks that somebody's calling or knocking the door, and so there's that, you know, distortion. But after going out and checking there's nobody, it makes him certain that it is a distortion.
근데 디 가상 말은 디조 디요리나 기 칼라레 디 이체디 디나면 디 체도라라 칼라
콜라스탄다.
근데 코일라레 이 디나라멘도사 근데 디 가상 지나기 이체디 디르셀라 카리 카가르라 투어지요 지나기 투어 last your question
Last time did you ask question related with some yichu or correct assumption? The correct assumption is I think I don't know.
디기 와데 시 인지나라 이기 와데
디카스니 로요 어디.
로임베
로요 어디.
어디 디나라 제디 zambal라 고타다지 고트용도 간다냐 다 거기 디나 내기도 타지 인데 디 이주엘레 zambal라 직디 이나 메나 섬데 대솜께네 다 간다냐 대솜데 타제도 zambal라 이주 마임바 차서 때 땡케사라 이주 제디 zambal라 타디 로디 디 답에 가르치 짐바이나 디 이나 메나 섬베 담니다 담니다 바 이냠바다 냠바다 되게 계속 담니다 바 타지던 줄로 뭐 교탑수 에네다 긴젠데 당어 코바텔라 데네네 타디 담니다 바레 섬베 로케션 와티 있는 에네 이제 디차
So your question about correct assumption, so because was saying it was clear in the you know, the latest section of the text, page 267. I think under that we read the definition of correct assumption, construing awareness that conceives with conviction the main thing that is its engaged object, but does not obtain a realization of its object of scrutiny. So does not obtain the, you know, realizations of its object of scrutiny. Basically, we haven't gained certainty yet. So once you gain a certainty, based on evidence or reason, then it's no more correct assumption. It's no more correct assumption. It's changed into other conclusion.
가서한테 대화 용어
A
서대
valid
컨텐츠 내래.
cognition, because it can also cause invalid. Assumption can also cause invalid.
더 고난다는 지주되고 세마다 멤버니가 계시기로 알아도 이주되기 되시네.
이제달라 쳔레레.
이주디 계수나고 세마 차세로 세마 멤버 차세기로 알아도.
레레레레 리체 차사라.
예.
얘네 다 페이지 단다 디간라 마타와데 단다 세미라 셴바데 탕도 셴바 이제데 마타와데 콜라디 니게 차여바 이제 인기래서 그래서 디잖아.
So you're saying maybe that was correct. It can become, valid as well as mistaken. Since it can be both, maybe that's why it's not listed here.
It depends on,
Yeah.
like, for instance, a person who constantly insults you, but then all of a sudden he gives you, what is the opposite of insult? I'm losing the term.
Praise.
Praise. He can praise you, but then you can mistake it as insult
Mm-hmm.
because you're used to being insulted by a person. Like, based on habitual tendency.
미지 기랑 같은 견주 견제 되고서나 아니 미 견주 몽 장제식 내게 미디게 기랑 떨어졌다서나 아니 기랑 기다 견주 지교대 시가 될 때는 견주 될게 하려고 그래. 곧 떨어당겨들이 견주기 보여줘라. 근데 수수 공식을 났을 때 간다 거랑 전달해야 되르셔. 그 이지도는 곧 세마다 세마면 네가 유도 적으라로.
내리도 차사를 선전로진 얘기도 있는데. 대인은 저 또보지 이나 다른 그저 디스타는 거 미지 마통와에는 미지기 디견 쇼바에는 딜라 다른 견레즘 실라 다치기 파 통인데 잠바 견 연된 직 가리에바에는 다다 등에도 잠바 등에도 그러다. 그 딜직 셈발라 마타와 등고분에서 다다 네 요한테 고단다 된데도 오실 손소라. 다되게.
So you're saying, somebody insulting you, but if that person knows kind of the reality of you and then start praising, then the object here, which is yourself, kind of sort of clarifies or sort of fix the cognition, his cognition. So you're saying maybe maybe not.
Well, if you gain a habitual tendency to expect an insult from somebody, and then all of a sudden they change, there's that moment where you could apply that habitual tendency when they don't actually mean insult.
또 그런 검시들도 시가 지나 그냥 견주 시대에 견주 시대도 좀 발엔 더 도쿄게 되었던 좀 다디 견주 시대에 되게 시가 지어라 미디게다 가디게 이 견주 되게 가라고래 또 그래라고 되니 베게 고 되어라다네게 다디다 인사말을 삼으셔라 다디 시기들이 연구를
언든디 든디 용거를 상담라 든디기 지금 언든디 용거를 상담라 지 뒤긴도 있는 견제 제대바에는 삼질라야 지기 야보다 연된 쉬어도 좀 연된 쉬어내야 지 든디도 지가 용거래다. 이단에 단다 든저직 될랑 아주 지단에 든디 요바에나 아주 조조디 직견 될라마다 와지 조조 아주 지금이 수다 수행 바에나 조 거기 개최다 연된 수이나 노라 여다 아주 정말 용거할 때 노라디 충분히 괜찮다 지네 디벳 디마저지 마가 마저지 디고서야라 간서 답시단 거야 개침 버렸지 난.
So both can be, because you're saying both can be happen here, your a kind of mental habituation, but then also kind of actual realization that insult is not valid, and then saying, and then praising would be can happen as well. But then generally he was saying by kind of pointing small, faults and then holding on to that is not helpful. Instead, kind of looking at the more positive aspect and look at the bigger picture and try to fix that kind of concept or view.
지단에 가서 되게 제시하는 데 지단에 가서 기 남긴이요. 배나 부어 데 슈가 가보 가르간지요 와이나 디가라 차디단에 페 차디지 디가 전에 슈르야 때 라네 때 좀 디나 가리도 세데 잠발라 nga zu ki nam ju ne nga zu ke che she zamba de ga la ni na po nak ti chi tu ze de di la byong da ena di ki pe de khar che na pe na de shu ka o chum bo de de ji yor de di na le to shu da ka wa de khar de na po chu ju de su te yong da zo zo ma de khar yor ka ro da na po ni che na ka po de ma da na po de nyo yor 당한 저기 직 갈라고 직 따당당 된데 시간에 맞아 ngồi thì xin gì mà thì yun dong ngaz 직 야와들라 직 상쇼라 야 뭐직 갈라고 직 비즈니스 슈체제야다 다직 파기들라다 제 도와줘라다 ngaz 비즈니스 마진에 되지 망보지 용되고라 디인데 정말 빼디디 디조양 빼 남균네 직빼 당되긴 된데 좋으시 용도
So, keep saying our tendency, the common example that we used often is if you put a small black dot on the white plain paper, and if you show to somebody, what's wrong here, the tendency is we'll say there's a black dot in there. And although the entire page is white and the black dot is tiny one, but we tend to kind of focus on the negativity. And so the important here is seeing the large empty white instead of that black dot, and our effort in general should be kind of promoting that kind of perspective, because the negative will come by itself. There's no need to.
Yeah, but it would bite you.
다티 ngazo chidane memo bochila chig rajin sena rajin da ke mare de ngazo le law ngon de de ke hong da ya ta tik o de de to shi ta ngazo ina ta sem de ka la combine na de la ni chig kom yo de ngazo nyam nyung to ne ha ko go de ngazo de gyön do ngazo kinan to dinala gyön bo ni de chen sambala chikare na me na da gi mare chig ya ho mabo shi la kum shi mabo de la chig kom de de chon to de yor ta
That is, although we sometimes refer to as a human nature, but it's not actually our nature, but that is where we sort of innately kind of follow, that kind of perspective. So, and the point here is that, as you all know, that it's very much up to your own mental habituation. Wherever you kind of habituated more, that will arise, is manifest. So, and we know that through our own experiences. And here, you are saying, many of you are sort of engaged in that kind of cultivating or developing perspective, would be different from ordinary people's perspective.
I'm pointing more towards not making assumptions or holding discernment over our assumptions.
어디 다른 지단에 이제 나래 가리나 된거 다른 중니 셰인데 잠발라 간다 카이나 또또 먼저 제바체네 강대니 캐나 로라 참바데 렘바이나 딘데지간라 디 디체 텔레양 양교 셴바 직 텔레 게바단 딘데 양 코알렌 참바 양디간라 양교 삼로 땅고야 자디 레 삼삼로 케미세 바마레 데 딘데지네 디치야 디야부도
So here I was saying that you are right, and here we are talking more about general, including correct assumption, because in the text ultimately it comes down to analysis and investigation, and when you analyze and investigate, you will come to the point where you think that this is correct, this is right according to your level of intellectual understanding, but then again you think and more it could change. So, and when you change, then you can have other, all kinds of faults, which might kind of, conflict with what you have known earlier or realized earlier.
단다 코딘디마 단다 코딘디마 트니 셰버마도 미시기 단다 큐데 크리스키딜라 미시기 렌도 코딘잖아.
So you were saying that his response is more kind of, more kind of indirect, general thing, not right kind of, response to what you have said earlier. Yeah, you have a question? Yeah.
Okay. Language question and a little bit of a question about our prayers.
Sure.
In the four measurables prayers, Semishi,
Dekyong.
the slide, Dekyong, equanimity. Okay, this is what's hanging us up. What was hanging us up in our discussion? The word meet in there for two. Okay, so in this final line, they're listed as, in our translation, as three different things. Three slides, attachments. So, since it says two, attachments and anger, I assume. Mean a separate thing, meaning bias. Meaning attachment to things close and aversion to things far, or does it mean attachment to things near and far, or beings near and far, and aversion to being? Or, as it is here, three separate things. Focus on me.
there's simje tamje yere chadang ni da tebe dang yum ne ba ju la joro. Niring chadang ni la joro. Ni le de kol ko re lo do. Ene ni le de kol ko re ene ya di ma me de gyur na lo le kol ko re sum su yo jo. Dang yum je ni chadang de ene chadang
다 단다 당에 ngara 단다 티치 디디라 다 갑도 쳐봐나 단다 디 인지널 가르쳐 샤도디 알레라 단디 심전 담제 니리 차다 디 단다 니르 니다 착바다 당원니다 착바다 당원니다 달레 당뇨라네 버주식스 디리주는 디시.
So here in English we don't see the two, right? The Tibetan word ni is two, so that two refers to chak and dang, attachment and anger. So and two refers to attachment and anger. And nyering la de nam ju nyering la de.
Nyo ta de ni de ni ga de taran di che ni de tanda di ni de tanda di chena ko ki ka la ko na che bar mi do ina tanda cha ba da da ni dan de tang ni ba taran.
So two here refers to attachment and anger, and then nyering is one word translated as a bias. Yeah.
Bias and the two of
tanda di 심전 탐제 니링 세드 삼발라다 직 년생 당아저 된다 다디가 누나 된데 도지 차로 심전 탐제 니링 차당 세드 삼발라 니링 세드 삼방아저 년년생 다 세디기에다 섬다란데로 년년생 당 아니 다 년년생 마임바다 년년생 이면 예난다 마임난다 다 차바다 당와다 달베니 정말 아니 찬용용어 쇼지 말람 겨워라.
So Tibetan word nye ring in the English translated as a bias, right? So the Tibetan, the meaning in the Tibetan would be there's a two word nye and ring. Nye means close, ring means distant. So in the practice, it's the practice of equanimity. So able to have a practice of equanimity without the common kind of thought we have towards people that are close. We have sense of closeness, and then distance we ignore. So without, close and distant. But in English, it sounds like it's a one word bias. I don't know, maybe, yeah. 인지도를 고단지는 고 숨다고 고고도 예링 직제 착과제 당화제 근데 이게 찾아매서는 당뇨민을 해도지
다단데 지단에 파기 베 디테일 기르기에는 단다 녀와다 리와스 녀와데 수세데 zambal다 간저 녀녀센데서 디 녀와데라 도고르 녀녀센 마임바데서 네 리와 군도라 도샤고 도보가오 녀와데서 녀와다 테마임바데서 리와데 데니라 도샤그로
메치르 모랑 귤로도 인지도를 타란 귤디 고고로 해로도 녀와데 리와라 인지도를 요마라든다 데네 인지도를 녀와데 리와라 디치르 치규르고 제요 말에
디나미도 디
바이스라이트나 추디어라니 제잔디 인지도를 귤게나 아니 녀와데 리와라 치코란 요와시 귤게 임베 멤베는 게스트도
디카레 칸디스 교리나.
No, deal me do
근데 치쿠란 데네 지어와이나 따다르면 단데디나 추기그라.
So I mean, if you ask me, then it's not only about translation, but I mean it depends on why you are translating, for what purpose. You have to look at the entire kind of picture. In this case, this is a prayer book, so you need to, the first is understand the meaning, and the second, you need to have kind of rhythm or tone of when you pray. So all of this needs to be considered. But if you are kind of doing a literal kind of translation, then you might translate, distant, close one. But here, probably the translator knows that it is not kind of, if you put that word, it goes out of rhythm in prayer and so.
Pause there.
Yeah.
Prayers.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
their nature prayers.
지나라 단데디나 디 인지다 베니가 하고 거라 디니 디코 니가 아니 거도디 찍어도 저기도 저기들.
뭐랑 당연 딩에 라서스데 인지널 숨도사. 단념 가자디 니링라디 직제. 샤고라디 직제. 다운라디 숨데 제스네네 단념이 말오지. 뭐랑 그다네.
대답 개발면도 되고.
So he was asking about how do you see this translation? Do you think it's fair translation or close?
Yeah, I always ask.
Okay.
It's just that when you're learning language in Tibetan language and you see a number, you know to look for that number of things you're singing. So that's why we started discussing it.
Yeah.
So I tag you with Chris, because Chris talking about somebody shifting and changing, but still coming from his perception of what he had experienced from somebody before. And so he had a bias because he was caught and hanging on to what he knew before. So that was a false assumption. So if you loosen up a little bit with the translation, they all go together.
이건서 다른 벤트부터 제모도 디강지 쓰기냐 상기 최근 속도도 디니 됐어.
Maybe I'm based upon what I thought I knew before.
normalmente 마크랑 수저.
이나 점점되도 됐다기도 정신.
그 기존한 교과던 저거 허수도 그런게 간다 신발 따는 용달 미니 숨세 되셔고.
어째 이 쇼다던
Do all of these precede the realization that you have to have this clear cognition first in order to even get to the equanimity.
Yeah, well, equanimity is not going on to anything.
Yeah. Is this the prerequisite understanding? Is this the prerequisite?
And pulling it out, because we tend to, in the West, we tend to say, well, anger and attachment are separate. So when you're speaking to a Western audience, because we are conditioned to look at them as separate things, in reality, though, they're all coming from my misunderstanding.
Like if we put a colon after her bias.
I think they're all together.
Examples.
I think anger is a wrong word. I think aversion is the proper word.
Yeah, but not everybody knows what aversion is. So
Well, it leads
it's
to
more of a
anger.
general popular.
aversion sometimes translated as anger, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, depending on who you're talking to, and if you want a broader base, people pretty much know what anger, or they know their own anger, or they know somebody else's anger to them. Yeah.
So
But
you're saying
it's aversion. It's not wanting what is coming toward you, basically.
Right. Mind wants to move.
Bias is making a determination. Do you want it or you don't want it? Yeah. So to me, that's a whole balancing. I see this as just a teeter-totter almost, and it's trying to keep balanced and not getting caught on either end of that to tilt. Oh, Matt, you should help me.
so he was asking, are you going to editing a prayer book, this book?
I don't want to commit to it because it's going to be so much work. But yeah, that's kind of a long-term.
Yeah, because you're saying there's also some,
There's a lot of things.
in Tibetan too, not
Yes.
of course in English.
마베 디나 컴퓨터 연나다 레라오 잉스 디연나.
마을에 그래.
나.
So
Didn't Mark do a revision of this? Like,
This is his original one, and so to understand like the undertaking he did, he typed this all out using a transcription system called Wiley into a translator that would then put that into Tibetan letters. So he didn't have like we have now, like a word processor where we directly type Tibetan into it. But he was doing a very convoluted way because it was the only way he could. So it took a lot of effort to do this, but again, there's going to be mistakes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's prior to like all these websites where you can just go copy paste the prayers because they're now online, you know. So it's long-term goal. So any mistakes you notice, you know.
여기랑 잡이지냐 안 돼서
Di chene nge dina taki taki chene di chu.
with.
Yeah.
Chris, do you have a question from the prayer?
Oh, I have a bunch of them.
Sure, yeah.
Like Angamagada.
Oh,
The
Angada.
games at Angamangada.
Okay.
Magada.
It's the name of the place, yeah.
Place.
That's the name of a
다
place.
단다 디 쇼로가 가지고 지 대표지 저 중니로 중니 죽숨 죽시 정아 쇼로가 정아 들어와 된데들라 배제도 쇼로가 정아는 당분이데 다 덤발라 더바레 타마데 양어도 오지리 테마이 만디기니 기마기 다 지금 다 순반이지 주시 버두기 단제바 중이게 쇼로레레기 데바레레 된도도 근데 또 도디도 콜라우디 세션나
So Geshe was saying it has like 15 verses, and first two are kind of appreciation, and the last one kind of dedication. Then in the middle, the 12 verses are presenting 12 deeds of Buddha with locations included as well.
But there were 12
Yeah, 12
deeds.
deeds.
He went on what was it, a journey? What was the term?
He said it was a pilgrimage.
A pilgrimage. So if I look up pilgrimage and 12 deeds, I should be able to find that online.
근데 제바 중에 그 당기 계시더라. 제바 중에 그 사자다 내고로서 니기로 알아도.
제 단다 디나로니
지단 고난
지단 고란에 파기트 디나라 라그 파기 디나 요요레 네 대사 민다 단다 지단에 디나라 숨바나 진치네 다디네 테스트 만다도 네 요 디나가 포야.
Yeah, generally you'll find it, but not exactly the same. There are little different versions.
Yeah.
But I need a frame of reference to understand what the prayers mean.
Okay,
Or else it's just gibberish.
Okay. That's the 중에 the law. So the name in English in Tibetan and English is different, the prayer. So in the English it's helpful, 12 acts of the Buddha, 12 deeds of Buddha. And then it starts from, the first one is descent from Tushita heaven. So Buddha prior to that in the heaven, and he came into earth. And then in the earth starts with, second one is entering the mother's womb, mother's womb. And
Mahadevi.
Yeah, Mahadevi. And then third is actual birth. And fourth, now, skill in various arts. He becomes the prince.
Skill in various, okay, archery, stuff like
that.
Yeah. Okay.
And then fifth is, again, in his courtyard palaces. It's translated as a delighting in the company of royal consorts. So, lots of, I guess, consort queens. And then sixth is developing renunciation and becoming ordained. So then he gave up everything, became a monk. And then seven, practicing austerities for 6 years. So 6 years he stayed in the forest meditating. And then eight, proceeding to the foot of the Bodhi tree. At the end of austerity, he stayed under the Bodhi tree. Then under the Bodhi tree, while he was meditating.
That's where he did his first book.
Yeah, number 9, then he encountered Maras, all illusions, devils, demons. And then number 10, he become enlightened. And 11, turning the wheel of Dharma, first teaching.
Four Noble Truth, and 12 passing into Nirvana or disease. So these were each verses has each of these.
Okay.
And so that's how.
That puts this into a better
Yeah.
framework for me.
Yeah.
Without detail.
Without detail, but
Really?
now I understand the prayer better, so it's not just wasted on empty space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the sutra, it talks about the four main sites where he was born. Then attaining enlightenment, and then turning a wheel of Dharma, passing away. Then further away there are next four. Then those 8 were most important pilgrimage site. Then from there you can further extend, more sites where kind of.
Is there any information about him being born with the umbilical cord wrapped around his throat?
되게 열애서 하려고 마 총에 갑라 지게 네 대화네 마 체셔라 디 징벌을 칼로 고라게도 요죠. 디 총은 이렇게
네 고마서.
이게 so far he's understanding no here. He doesn't know.
But he was born from his mother's side.
That's what was in the
남준은 그 디르마 최근
one. Yeah, in the traditional it says on the side.
Which is usually associated with having the umbilical cord wrapped around your throat. Or breach.
Yeah,
that would be the opposite. That would be the other reason why they would cut him out of his mother's stomach.
There's a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
A lot of cesarean births now for a lot of different reasons. So, but they didn't
have that. They had all they had was Ayurvedics, and they can tell by the pulse if the baby's heart is beating, and if it stops, then they
take the baby.
They would cut the baby out from the side.
Let's assume that. I mean, we assume that because none of us were there.
We don't know.
We don't know it.
We don't know the reference that's being referred to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the same language we have, or the same what we think is understanding.
이렇게 하고 말은 원소를 독실해 하시다 군에 간대 중단지어로.
네네. 지단다 좀부터 중단돼. 지단의 군소에 담올리진 라이드 보이거라. 담올리진. 지단의 상계 직상마제세나데 상계기제 컨디션을 단 제버치고 된 순으로 담올리진 루이친간데 상계기에 경험마치기 겨와레데 예 담올라 루이친버데 텔라테네 데리치 루기요. 니타티 티도 소나스. 디나라 동메도 딩넬 되게 담올리진
가르죠. 걔 상계 통해도 가르죠. 그래서 내가 가르쳐요. 내한테 콘솔 통해 이렇게 시듯이 언제도 가르쳐.
통해 상계 코나 할 미스기 지단
알아.
상경 데도.
Yes, any other questions? Yeah, man.
Yeah.
No, if I want to ask this question. So this is talking about like valid and mistaken cognition and bias. Like I look at all of the strife that's going on in the world, and there's racism and there's bigotry. There's a riot at the immigration detention, and that's because of racism and bigotry. There's all this trouble in the Middle East with, ethnic cleansing because of racism and bigotry. And so you have all these groups that have, like, collectively, they have like bigotry and bias towards other groups. And I struggle, like, can this be overcome or deconstructed in the same lifetime? Or are some people like just so karmically predisposed to having this bias that they're just going to stay stuck that way for that lifetime and continue committing like these destructive acts?
Does a cat change its behaviors?
But is that a permanent?
Well, for the cat it is. Some people have lower capacity than others. And if they're locked in lower capacity, they tend not to make certain realizations.
제 당은저 단다디 그시 단다 송보데 덴바데 당은저 저 덴데 망보 용하데 단당은저 미 류데니 직
Like for instance,
칼라오르다
my
직
mother has got
뭐
autism.
키네 나니 키네
Never
야와다 상와 삼로타
be
요와
enlightened in
다
this
지단에
life.
가서 교왔다 단다 제심바데 교왔다 요레다 다
His
미소소소
cravings
삼로타네 다직
he
다
just
교왔다
doesn't
땅
have
고에
the
차차고라
ability to make them
인디
real
삼발라
there.
가서 단다 지단에 가서 단다 nga
Yeah,
na
he's
chue yin ba de
extremely
na
low
da chi
functioning.
lob jong che na nga bu ge ba ne tang bo phama de zu ge de ga chi ge fu de lob jong che ga tang lob jong che ga tang go ko ba kin de zo do de chi mi sang bo ji dor de na mi sang bo che da ya bo chi chi de de yo gi ta lam de ge ta da ne dan de de la ni ma lu wa gi ta re wa tang che ne do de na ya da di tan da chi nge be chola ya nge ba se na de ta de ji ne tang ga la ya le byong gu do
I'm also able to
ina gyurwa tan
achieve
tan yor
my
ina ta
realization.
ngachi ma tu gyurwa to ra chidane nga tu tu gyun tu gyurwa
That
to
what
ra
matters is the effort that you put behind it, really.
nendo jing so
he was saying it was true and from Buddhist point of view, of course, when we look at our human life, we consider this as a a good, precious human rebirth, has immense capacity, ability, and therefore, as a human, from the early kind of childhood, parents sends their children to school, to learn, understand. So ultimately, to become a good human being, without kind of involved in such kind of conflicts or all of the things that is happening right now. But the point here is that by nature, it's just a matter of time. There has to be change, and it will change.
It could happen over lifetimes.
chidane tang zo gi
It will
molam
change.
kya na di molam de ge ga chanchu sun cho ren de ma ye pan ke yu ke wa nya ba me ba koni kon do phwa ji ti molam kya yen de sam bala zo zo tang zo chi de wa yo ba tang zo de de chi ne chi ya ma she ne de wa me ba ina de de chi ne ba ke ge da de de gi ri du so la chanchu gi sem ke wa sho de molam kya wa ra ti ja yen de sam bala tang zo gi molam te tu da ne ba la de ne chi gi wa du do ge re wa dang de de ngan zo kya bo re da na jing gi 지단에 단다 먼저 점불링 용라야 지 줄로 가르지 바이나 시대당 튼람당 인데 콜라 카메 난고르테 테 나오나 진기 지 가주 강토도게 아니 참마게 베진 슈거라
And we always, recite dedication prayers, as you know, may the supreme jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen, arise and grow, and may that which is arisen not diminish but increase more and more. As a Buddhist practitioner, when we recite this prayer, it doesn't matter whether you are connected with others or not. We are making this prayer for all beings. And having said that, with that prayer, we always keep and maintain hope that, this will flourish, this will prevail, and can directly or indirectly impact it, all other remaining beings, regardless of their connection, faith or not. And so the first thing is that, when we make this prayer, we always do with hope and, something kind of change better to whatever, suffering out there. And then secondly, we have, like Buddhism, there are many other faith groups. With the good intention, they try to create, harmony, good connections, and try to work for better sort of world. So there is that work going on, whether it's kind of actually achieving its result or not. But as a Buddhist practitioner, we always maintain that hope, and we need to sort of maintain this optimism.
다나 진디 단데던 당해 지시샤나 단다 투와데나 단다디 지단닝 자와 투사데 가와 투기에 메데 지단이 징한저 나전이 샤바이나 토타르도 바이나 당도 도자세 도 딜레토 도자세데 삼발라다 징한저 차단 차고 지겨 디 네 지금 오포도 데릴라 차이 데리기 지겨라 된대기 숙천보기 왕기 나 교당 알아야기 된대 방보시 영샤거라 딜라 투네 다 된대 교계 방보시 다 미기 쓸강아 세용거라 다 된소 당한테 되긴데 나지 책임진 바는 된소 용화 컨디스 당답당 된대라 장거라 어디게 다 대용거라 다 배도로
So fundamentally, it kind of comes down to, from Buddhist point of view, saying, such as the source of the problem, like attachment or desire, with intense kind of desire or longing for something, it creates a conflict. So if one really needs to kind of deal with the root or source of the problem.
근데 제가 때는 material 게 탐지는 뭐 어땠잖아.
So we'll do the dedication.
장조 셈조 림보제 마제 바남 겐조로제 개와 냠바 메바양 고네 곤도 베와르 쇼 가리 라베 코레 신간데 펜단데와 말륜 총웨네 제레세와 텐진 갸조 샤베 시데 바르도 덴조로제 자바 바위 제다라 켐바나 곤도 삼보 테야 테제 Teta kunje sheso dalo cher gewa dida tamje rabdu ngo tizum shebe gyawa tamje ge ngo kanla choto ngap dagi gewe zawa di kun kyang zambo cheche rabdu ngo wargi. In English? But the Gita has not risen in the recent volume.
So now I
should dedicate this resource from my merit for all saints. Okay, thank you, Tuje Chenang.